Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fourth Down Focus. This is episode 8, where we talk about what happens in that sport over the pond, and to be fair, this side of the pond as well for the last 3 weeks. So, today I am joined by only two of us. I don't know where the other one's gone, he's just disappeared. So, we've got James.
Hiya.
And we've got Caden.
Hello, everybody.
And we've got me, who is still the predictions champion, as you can see by the belt. So it's all going well so far for me. I'm going to pass you over to James, and he can tell you what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not starting it off, but someone can. Our team's performances this week. Kane, I'll start with you because I can't actually remember if you won or not. I think you did.
We did. We got another win, and I think everyone knew it was coming, let's be honest, apart from Max, who for some reason predicted the Browns to beat the Bengals, which his logic behind it was Nick Chubb is back. Nick Chubb, he had a decent game, but he did not win the game for them. Just a solid performance for us. Coming into a tough game now. We've not had a game this tough for a while, but back-to-back wins. Let's hope we can make it 3 and continue our playoff push.
Kian, I mean, probably similar to me. Not very happy.
No, I mean, the less said about it, the better again. Aiden O'Connell got injured. Not really a massive loss. I mean, he's the same sort of level as the other quarterback that we brought in. Minshew threw a handful of picks. If he could manage a game properly, we'd probably have won that. To say we were still in it with five points behind at the end of the game says more about the Rams than it does about us. And the only real bright spark was Brock Bowers, who's on track for a historic season. So apart from him and Max Crosby, we've got nothing so far.
Yeah, I mean, we're back to what I probably expect us to be at. Completely shut out by the Eagles at home. I don't know how long it's been since Daniel Jones has thrown a home touchdown, but it's getting ridiculous at this point. I think he's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns at home in the last year or something like that. It's ridiculous. We won't advance anywhere. I mean, we lost Andrew Thomas now, and Ezadu at left tackle might be the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So I'm glad. I don't know who it was, but I saw we're looking at a lineman, which we really need because I cannot watch certain people on our line try and step in and play the Andrew Thomas role because, funnily enough, he's way better than them, and it's painful without him already. But yeah, I mean, Saquon went off. I think it was probably expected. I think he ended up with NFC Offense Player of the Week as well, which isn't surprising. He literally tore us apart. But yeah, I mean, we're probably in that tankathon battle now. I think we're up to 8th on tankathon, so doing well, getting there. Aiming for that top 3 pick, hopefully. But yeah, no, not a good week for us, but less said about it, the better. We'll move on to some more games that don't affect, especially our teams, because let's be honest, we don't really want to talk about it apart from games. So first of all, the Super Bowl rematch happened, and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl rematch. Big win for the Chiefs. They moved to 6-0 now, I believe. Whatever it is, Mahomes again just doing his thing with no receivers, doesn't matter. But Kian, just standard practice for the Chiefs at this point.
I mean, you shouldn't have come to me first. I can't stand them. I think I hate them the most out of anyone on this podcast for obvious reasons. Although I have got to say, I don't like giving him credit, but watching Patrick Mahomes run through that defensive player for the touchdown was pretty funny. He just absolutely sat him on his ass. I don't really understand how they're 6-0. They just find a way, and they found a way again. I mean, Purdy didn't have a good game. What was it? Was it 3 interceptions or 2 interceptions that he threw?
Honestly, not sure.
It was a pretty high. It was a pretty high number as far as I'm aware. Obviously, they got Ricky Pearsall back as well. I had a feeling he was going to get a touchdown. He didn't, but it would have been like one of them Disney stories. But for a man to come back and be that fit after being shot just a few days ago is some credit. So, that's the only bright spot for the 49ers. And yeah, the Chiefs are probably going to win it all again. We'll probably get onto what they've done today later on this, but it's starting to get a bit painful now.
Yeah, I mean, Caden, I don't really see anyone stopping them at the minute. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I did think the team to stop them would be the Niners. I did back them in my predictions. I think you did as well, didn't you, James?
No, it was you and Max. Me and
Keane, Max.
Chiefs, yeah.
Yeah, I think with it being a Super Bowl rematch, it's obviously going to be a good game, and it did live up to our thought it'd be. It was a very good watch. And like Kian said, there's a couple of good positives to take from the Niners. I think they're still in contention, and they could still go on to make the Super Bowl. You never know. But Mahomes, it's the first time he's gone 6-0 in his career, I believe. And he is just ridiculous, isn't he? Like, the amount of games they've won by minimal margins and they've left it late to pick up, and he's always found a way to get him over the line. So it's just it's boring, but the Chiefs are gonna probably go all the way now.
Yeah, I mean, it was 3 interceptions. I just checked for Purdy, so definitely not the best game for Purdy. After I think I said he's a top 5 quarterback last week, and he decided to do
Yeah,
that.
you did actually.
Yeah, I still believe it, but maybe not. Definitely not last week anyway. But it's just tough. I said it before when we said about Super Bowl predictions a few weeks ago. I don't see how it's not the Chiefs winning the AFC. Like, if you think, as you said, you don't know how they're 6-0, but the fact you don't know and they still are because they've been poor and they're still winning all these games, it goes to show that when they do end up playing well, it's going to be an onslaught. They could easily go 17-0, which is insane, but they could, because I don't see who beats them, because they're winning these games. They weren't even that great against the 49ers, but they still won it. So I think, yeah, it's going to be hard to stop them at this point for anything, let alone Super Bowls and stuff like that. But moving on to the Lions-Vikings, no Aiden Hutchinson, no problem for the Lions, taking down the unbeaten Vikings, finally crashing out after their amazing start to the season. I think that division now, they're 5-1, they're not even top of the division, which is just crazy at this point. It's a joint top now with the Lions, the Vikings, they moved to 5-1. Caden, I mean, Lions now probably the favourites in the NFC after that win.
Yeah, I think the Lions have been the best NFC team this season. I don't think there's anyone apart from the Vikings that have come close, but it did feel inevitable at some point that the Vikings would fall off a bit. I'm not sure if they're going to completely fall off, but obviously it's going to be a bit disheartening losing your first game of the season when everyone thought you were going to be poor and you've gone and done so well. I think the Lions just different level really this year, and I wouldn't be too upset if I was a Vikings fan because we're still probably going to make the playoffs, however it may be. But yeah, it's just a case of you win some, you lose some, I guess. And unfortunately, the Vikings have lost one.
Kian, same sort of story.
Yeah, the same sort of thing from me. I mean, it was a close game, which is a good thing the Vikings can take away from it. They didn't get blown out by that really explosive Detroit offense. It took a kick towards the end to actually win them the game. And obviously, with the Lions, you just see what happens. Montgomery got injured, yet still Jahmyr Gibbs came in and did Jahmyr Gibbs things. So yeah, they're a ridiculous team. They're definitely the favourite for the NFC for me. I said last week, and I've said ever since we asked that Super Bowl question a couple of weeks ago, I did say I thought the Lions are going to be in the Super Bowl, and I just can't see any way they're not. If I'm being honest, it would take a major choke, but we know they've got that in them. So if they've got the bottle, then it's theirs to lose for me, because I think they're a better team than the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a very disheartening loss for the Vikings at all. You're losing by a kick to probably the best team in the NFL that isn't the Chiefs. And, it was going to come eventually. They were never going to go 17-0. We knew this. So I think it was going to come in any week. The probably least heartening week for it to come in was this week because, this is a tough team to beat. And they took it to the end. I think it's quite a cool story as well. I believe the kicker, can't remember his name for the Lions, but
Bates, it was.
Bates, yeah. He's a former Our Football player, converted into NFL, and has just made a massive kick for their season, because that's a huge win for the Lions, all things considered, because they lose that game, the Vikings have full control on that division then. And then, that's 2 losses behind. You've got to play catch-up. So I think it's a big win for the Lions, but I wouldn't be too annoyed if I was a Vikings fan or head coach, whatever. I think they'll still be all right. So carrying on with that sort of division, we had the Green Bay Packers with a massive upset win over the Houston Texans. Kian, I mean, this is a pretty big statement win for the Packers, you'd feel.
Well, yeah, we all predicted the Texans, and with good reason. They've been so good this year. I've got them in my playoffs and in my Super Bowl. Sorry, and I still sort of stand by it. But CJ Stroud only threw for 86 yards. Okay, Mixon ran for 115, 2 touchdowns. But when your quarterback's only throwing for 86 yards, there's issues there. When you're looking at the Packers, they were really good. Jordan Love threw 3 touchdowns. This is a team for me that if it wasn't for them two or three games without Jordan Love, would be pushing right up there. I know they won a couple of, well, they might have won, was it 1 or 2 games with Malik Willis, but it's still not the same sort of statement as having Jordan Love. So they would be pushing right up there for me, and they'd be a lot more highly ranked, especially in power rankings and stuff, if they hadn't lost him at any point this season. I'm a big fan of the Packers, and I think they've got a very good chance in the playoffs, but they just need to keep it together.
Caden, you agree with that one?
Yeah, I do really like the Packers. I'm a big fan of Jordan Love. Like I've said it quite a lot on the podcast, but the Texans and the Packers are two of my favourite teams to watch as a neutral. And the Packers definitely got a strong enough team to be in the playoffs. Whether they get there or not, it's a different story. But not as big as of an upset as people might say, I don't think, because it's two, I'd say, quite evenly matched teams. Obviously, the Texans are a better team, but the Packers aren't far behind. And Jordan Love had a great game and definitely deserved the win. And like I said, with the playoffs, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was an interesting one for me because we all picked the Texans, but there was that thought in my mind that the Packers might be able to nick it because, as I said, Jordan Love's a great quarterback, and there were some question marks when he first came back after his injury. I think he had a bit of they won, but he had a bit of a slow game, and everyone was like, oh, is he going to be the same player that he was going to be first season? But he's proven that he is going to be that player again this year. And the problem is, I think the only problem the Packers are going to have is that division is ridiculously competitive. And there is a high chance that one of them will have an insane record to miss out on the playoffs. Like we could see one of the best records ever missing out on the playoffs because like some team from like some random division is going to end up with like 7 wins and scrape in because of how poor the division is. And the poor Packers are going to have like 11 wins and still not make the playoffs. But no, I think, yeah, they're a great team. And the Texans, it was maybe a wake up, hopefully for them, a wake up call because 86 yards is not good enough from CJ Stroud. It's just not. You cannot maintain performances like that because you will just keep losing every week. But yeah, it's a big win for the Packers, I think. Finally, with the game sort of last week, unfortunately, the last game of the UK circuit, the Jags versus the Patriots at Wembley Stadium. The Jags coming out with a big win. Again, we all predicted the Patriots on that one, so it was sort of a shock win for the Jags. But Tank Bigsby, unbelievable performance from him. Oh, sorry, apart from Caden, who picked the Jags to be edgy. And then, yeah, well, you'll see in a bit how the other edgy picks didn't work out so well for him. But, I mean, Cian, you were there. What do you think of the game?
Do you know what? On paper, that was a terrible game. And I actually had to stick up for the NFL on here last week because you guys were all saying about it. But actually, it was a really good game. It was really entertaining. The Jaguars scored their longest ever touchdown with the punt return, which unfortunately for the 2 lads next to me who were massive Jaguars fans, were in the concourse. So they missed the punt return and they came back. I told them, and I've never seen a more upset fan about a winning team. But yeah, Tank Bigsby was really good. For me, he's got to be their starting running back now. He holds onto the ball so much better than Travis Etienne does. His ball security is unbelievable. And he just makes situations where there isn't anything for him to do. He makes that happen. So he was really good. And to be honest with you, I was quite impressed with Drake May anyway. I know they didn't win, but some of the throws he was making for a man in his second ever game in the NFL, playing in a completely different fucking country, he did really well, I thought. So, yeah, all around, it was a really good game and just a good day out as well. The NFL deserves so much credit for what they put on in London because, I mean, I know it's not the same as going over there and watching it, but the whole atmosphere and experience is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you said with Drake May as well. I completely agree with you on that one because 2 games and he's already, I don't know how many, is it 5 touchdown passes in 2 matches?
Can't remember how many he threw last week. Was it 2 or was it 3?
I think it was 3 last week.
Yeah, so yeah, it'll be on 6 then because he had 3 against the Texans as well.
6 passing touchdowns in 2 matches. It makes you feel like with the Patriots, well, I think the Patriots definitely would not be 1-6 if he had started from week 1. And I think it's finally the end of the Jacoby Brissett reign of terror on New England. But it should be anyway because he played absolutely unreal. And, he was 3rd pick for a reason. We all knew this. But I don't think any of us thought we were going to see him anytime soon. But thank God we have for both the Patriots and just the general enjoyment of anyone having to watch their games because he's been very good. But the Jags, yeah, they're just great. I believe it was the longest touchdown ever scored in London as well.
That was the stat story, not the Jaguars. Yeah, it was the longest ever in London.
Yeah, longest ever London touchdown. You can't really argue with it, and they were great. Unexpectedly great. Trevor Lawrence looked like a different player almost in that game, but yeah, big win for the Jags. I mean, Caden probably agree with what me and Cian have said, but anything to add to that one?
Yeah, there's not really much else to add to it, really, is there? It's always nice for the games to be over here, especially when it's two heavily supported teams in the country. I didn't have the privilege of going, unfortunately, unlike Cian. But it's always nice to see the British crowds for the NFL. I think that's a big part of it. Very loud, constantly, instead of just in scattered parts. But yeah, there's not really much else to say about that game. It's not an amazing game on paper, but nice to see the teams in England again, and they'll be missed until next season.
100%.
Yeah, you said about the atmosphere as well. So yeah, I live in Wembley, and it was really cool just walking around, just seeing all the different shirts. You could probably find all 32 teams.
I actually did. I had a little bingo, and I was really, really, really upset because I had 31 out of the 32 going back to my car, and as I was driving out the car park, a Colts fan walked past me, and I was like, "Oh, you beauty! I've managed to do all 32."
It's just great to see that sort of sense of community, because it's not something we get very often, and it's very cool, and it will be definitely missed. And it's a long time away until we see it again, unfortunately. But we'll move on to what I've labelled this week as the week of the injuries. Some massive, massive losses to some teams, and of course, Deshaun Watson got injured as well. And Max would be absolutely buzzing. I'm sure he'd have about 4 hours of stuff to say about how happy he is. But yeah, Deshaun Watson ruled out for the rest of the season with an Achilles injury. Jameis Winston has been confirmed to be starting there from the foreseeable future. Obviously, they did sign Bailey Zapp off the Chiefs practice squad as well. So that'll be an interesting one. Cian, probably an advantage for the Browns more than a loss at this point.
Just first of all, on Deshaun Watson, right? He's not a very good person, just putting out there now. But to see an entire stadium cheering when a man has just done his Achilles almost felt quite harsh. I've seen clips, and there's a bloke, he's just gone down, he's holding his Achilles, and there's this bloke stood there doing this. And it's like, that's your starting quarterback. So, yeah, it felt a bit harsh, but I mean, it couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke, really, could it?
Caden, same sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Deshaun Watson, I'll be honest. He's hilarious to watch, and because he played for the Browns and they're in our division, I do quite like that he was their starting quarterback. But as Cian said, he's not a very nice person, and if there was ever a person you want to do their Achilles, it is Deshaun Watson. So I won't go any further into that, but it's happened, and that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to typically celebrate injuries, but yeah, there's probably not many people else you would rather have an injury than Deshaun Watson. Not a great person, not a great player either, and I wouldn't be shocked if that's potentially the end of his career in the NFL. It's been coming, I think, for a while, and I think that might be the nail in the coffin for that one. Another quarterback who isn't a serious injury, we don't know, he's been labelled as day-to-day, is Jane Daniels. Went down early in the Commanders game with a rib injury, I believe it was. But he was cleared, I believe, to come back into the game, but they decided not to because they were playing the Panthers and they were about 30 points up by the time he was cleared. So there wasn't really much point. Mariota did a more than fine job, I think, coming in, step up 2 touchdowns. But Caden, this could be a big loss for the Commanders if it is more serious than they thought.
Yeah, if he's out for a few weeks, I think that could be their season, any contention, because he was pretty much the catalyst in them actually doing well. And I think without them, they'd be a bit lost at the moment because he's carrying them quite hard at the moment. But we don't know how serious it is, and let's just hope that it's not bad, unlike Deshaun Watson's, and that he does come back and continue for the rest of the season.
Cian, same thing.
Put it this way, Jane Daniels is Washington. There's nothing else to say about. He is Washington. Without him, like Caden said, they're nothing really. So they better hope that it's not something serious. Mariota did a fine job, but it was once again against the Panthers, and they got a big game coming up this week. So I hope he's back personally, just because that should be a really good game, and it's been flexed into into a good spot. So if it's been flexed and now Jaden Daniels is injured, someone's going to look very stupid.
Yeah, it would be a big loss for the Commanders. I think you can't deny he's been everything towards anything good they've done this season. The team isn't good, but he's making them all look unbelievable. With that receiving core, the fact they've got as many wins as they have is incredibly impressive. But I think, yeah, it could be a big loss for the Commanders if it is. I don't think it will be that serious, as he was cleared to come back into the game. He may miss this week, which would be not ideal for them, but I can't imagine it'd be any longer than that. It didn't look too bad in the end for him. But one that is a bit more serious is Chris Godwin from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you include in that Mike Evans from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both now, Evans, I believe, ruled out till at least after their bye in week 11. And Godwin could be a season-end injury, fractured, I believe it dislocated his ankle, I believe it was, which he's had surgery on since. Kian, probably the end of Tampa's season, you'd feel, with them two injuries?
Definitely the end of Tampa's season. I don't really see what they do without them two. It's the main options for Baker Mayfield is them two receivers. I mean, who's he going to throw the ball to now? K. Dotton. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, they've got no chance now, I'm being honest. And I quite like them as well, so it's a bit of a shame, really, but hopefully the injuries aren't that bad. Mike Evans, I'm not having he's going to be back in week 11. I mean, he looked in huge pain and he'd done his hamstring, so that could also be a bit of a season ender, and they're trying to keep it a bit quiet because they don't want to really dampen the morale after the Chris Godwin thing. I suppose we'll see, but yeah, season done for me now for Tampa.
Caden, do you agree with that one?
Yeah, I think Baker is a good quarterback, but without those receivers, he's just not going to do anywhere near as much work for Tampa as he has been, because he was in contention for MVP until these injuries, in my opinion, because he's just been driving them forward so well. But it's quite sad because they could have had a really good season, and without the two best receivers, then it's just not going to happen anymore, unfortunately. So they could try get someone in, but will they?
And who?
Yeah, there's not many options at the moment. Obviously, could have had Devontae Adams, but he's already gone to the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how they win many games at the pair of them. Annoyingly for me, Mike Evans did get injured, because if he did just get 30 more yards, I would have won 70 quid. But yeah, it's just, I just don't see how they do much without the two of them. K. Dotton, I think, ended up with over 100 yards in that game because of them two being not fit. So I think that's his only option, really, and that's not ideal. Let's be honest. That's not a winning game reception. He's not going to K. Dotton, so they'll struggle. But the 49ers, a big loss, but a potential almost sacrifice-worthy loss, as they could have a big comeback. So Brandon Ayuk out for the rest of the season with a serious knee injury, but Kyle Shanahan has confirmed that CMC has potential to be back playing after their bye week. So the 10th of November, when they play the Buccaneers, CMC could very much be back in contention. Kian, do you reckon they take that trade-off, Ayuk for CMC?
No. If I'm being honest, no, I don't think they would. Any running back, as we've seen so far this season, can work in that offense. Brandon Ayuk hasn't been the best. He's been okay, but he is a game-winning wide receiver. I'm not saying that McCaffrey isn't a game-winning running back, but for me, that's not a sacrifice you take. I mean, if it's up to you, then you don't have either get injured. But no, I think you are happy with Jordan Mason the way he's been playing.
Caden, same thing? Or do you disagree?
Yeah, it's just, pretty much exactly what Kian said. I really don't have anything else to add on to it.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, obviously. Ayuk's he's not been great, but it's Brandon Ayuk. He's one of the best receivers in the league when he's on it, and he was sort of getting better and better per week. To then be hit with this injury now, it's a bit like, do they try and trade maybe for another receiver, or do they just accept this season's not going to be the one? Because CMC back will be huge for them, obviously, but Jordan Mason hasn't exactly been bad. I don't think CMC would have won any of the games they've lost is what I'd say about it. But they also lost Deebo Samuel to, I believe it was pneumonia. So hopefully he's okay. And he'll be back in a week or two, I believe. But if this week they do have to play without Deebo and Ayuk, it's going to be tough because I don't even know who their other receivers are. But I think one trade to keep an eye on with the 49ers could be Cooper Kupp, because apparently he is available for trade. And if Ayuk is definitely out for the season. If Deebo's more serious than we think with the illness, I wouldn't be surprised if they go in for him. Because with Kupp and Samuel, you've got sort of your Ayuk replacement there, and I think they'd be quite content with them two, and they'd be back to where they were. And then you bring CMC back into that fold, and they're competitors again. So I think that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. But speaking of trades, unfortunately for everyone, the Chiefs have a receiver. DeAndre Hopkins has left the Tennessee Titans to join the Kansas City Chiefs for a 5th-round pick, which could rise to a 4th-round pick. So the Chiefs, who are already 6-0, now have a wide receiver 1 to continue their season, and he's a very good receiver when he's on it as well, as he's proven throughout his whole career. Caden, just another point to the Chiefs, which is going to help them win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think the only thing that was going to stop them was the lack of receivers. And they have done a smart thing by getting one in. But if I was controlling everything at the Chiefs, I wouldn't have brought one in, just because it'd be really funny if they didn't and still won it. But yeah, I've been going against the Chiefs being in the Super Bowl all season, but it's getting to the point where now it's just no way they're not going to get there. It's annoying, but it's true.
Kian?
They do love an in-season wide receiver trade. Obviously, Kadarius Toney joined mid-season. Michael Hardman joined mid-season.
So I can't believe just Kadarius Toney in this conversation.
Yeah, this is a little bit higher profile than Kadarius Toney. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame for the rest of the league, really, isn't it? It's a huge shame for us. We've still got to play him twice. And I mean, for a 5th round, someone's been absolutely ripped off there. Although, to be fair to DeAndre Hopkins, you're offering him Will Levis and Mason Rudolph or Patrick Mahomes. You know where he's going. So you can't blame him at all. But yeah, it's a big issue for the rest of the league. Unless Max Crosby can, rather than edge rush, just keep bashing into him all week on Sunday. It's the only option.
Yeah, you'd have to feel like the only way they're stopped now is a Mahomes injury. I don't see any other way of how they don't win the Super Bowl at this point, and at least get there, because with D-Hop now, it's just, he's not necessarily had the best couple of seasons, but he's still probably a guaranteed 1,000-yard season receiver. And, he's had a great career. He knows what to do. And I feel like with Mahomes, he's going to look unbelievably good in that wide receiver 1 role, because he's going to get the ball 90% of the time. It's going to be traded to him and Worthy all the time. So I think, it's just another piece to an unfortunately unbelievable Chiefs puzzle. But another big sort of situation was with the Saints. Obviously, there's a lot of rumors of Alvin Kamara potentially being on the trade block, with the Saints not doing the best this season, but they've put that to bed. He signed a 2-year, $24.5 million deal with the Saints to continue his time in New Orleans. For me, I think they needed to do it. That's basically their entire offense at this point. Olave's not had the best season. He's now injured. Shaheed's injured, but he's a big piece to that Saints offense, and they needed to keep hold of him if they want to be competitive next year, because it's just quite simply they need him. But it's a big deal, but I think he's worth it. He's proven this season as well, especially if he looked really good this year. I think despite the Saints not being great, he still looked unbelievable to me. But Kane, probably just a routine situation for the Saints, and they got it done quickly.
Yeah, it needed to be done, really, because he is probably their best player. And I had bigger expectations for the Saints, I'll be honest, this season after that good start. And he seems to be the only one that's actually still playing to a good level. So, just it needed to be done, really.
Kian?
So, I mean, it's a big one for me. I'm not shocked that they've done it. I think they needed to do it. But then you could also argue on the flip side, they're not a competitive team. They've not been a competitive team for a few years. Would you rather? I mean, I'll pose this question to you two now. Would you rather keep him and be continuously mediocre whilst having a great player, or trade him away for a decent value and move towards that rebuild?
It's a difficult one, because they're not bad enough to be getting the draft picks to revolutionize the franchise, but they're not good enough to be winning stuff. So it makes you think if they do trade him, they then potentially fall into that bracket of not good enough, bad enough to be getting the top draft picks. But at the same time, they might be still too good because they've still got Olave, they've still got Sheed, they've still got good receivers. And Derek Carr, as much as he's not the best, he's still not bad. So I think just for now they keep hold of him. Maybe next year, if it's the same story, you look towards a trade and maybe just rebuilding again. But I think for now, you keep hold of him.
Yeah, fair enough. Caden, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's the safe option, keeping hold of him, because how long would it take for them to do like a full rebuild and try build something good? Like it'd take a very long time. I think for now they've probably done the right thing by just keeping hold of him and making sure they're not absolutely abysmal.
It's a difficult one, I think. You have got a point though. You know, there is that argument that they just trade him away for a good compensation and just hope they can rebuild the team. But I guess we'll find out maybe if it's a ploy to get more compensation for him with a new contract, maybe. But we'll move on to our week. Is it 8 now? Week 7, week 8 predictions?
We're on 8. We're on 8.
Right, week 8 predictions. So last week, as Kian liked to mention, he did win the week. He got 10 out of 15 correct. I believe I had 9, Max had 8, and Caden had 7. So another week where Caden's finished last, but as he did say, he got the Jags right, but he also predicted the Giants, Dolphins, and the Vikings to win. So that's where it all fell back to you. And me and Kian, we had every team the same apart from the Vikings game, which is why I haven't drawn with him, because I went with the Vikings and with the Lions. But hopefully this week I can finally get a win. It's been about 3 weeks and I actually have one a week. But first up, the LA Rams against the Minnesota Vikings. I'll start with you, Kian. What do you think?
Minnesota! Sorry, I really felt like doing that then. I'm going to take the Vikings. I think that the Rams are not a very good side. They looked pretty poor against a very, very shit Raiders team. So that's all I've got to say about it. And the Vikings are looking to bounce back after their first loss of the season as well. So Minnesota for me.
Caden?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings as well. I just don't think the Rams have got it in them to get anything out of the Vikings. I think they're probably going to be a bit disheartened after losing the first game. But I think the Vikings are definitely the better side at the moment either way. And until the Rams get some of their players back from their injuries, they're just going to be very mediocre for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think if there's any team that's going to bounce back well from a loss, it's the Vikings. The team spirit's incredible in that locker room, and they've all mentioned how much it bonds them together and how it's key part of their success. But I'm going to make it a sweep for us to begin with, and I feel like this will be a common theme throughout most of these games. I'm going to go with the Vikings. Just don't see a world where the Rams win this game. Although Cooper Kupp is back, so it'll be a slightly different offense.
On my fantasy app, it reckons that Puka Nacua is cleared for this weekend potentially as well.
Yeah, I believe there's potential. It's not guaranteed, but Cooper Kupp is definitely playing, I believe, and Puka's a maybe. So with them two back, it might be a different story, but I still think the Vikings have more than enough with that defense to be able to stop them. It's also interesting to see what happens with Matthew Stafford, because I've seen this whole thing with him going to the Vikings, which I have no idea what's going on there.
Yeah, and all the Rams fans seem to start disliking him, and I'm very confused by it.
Yeah. I don't really get it from either side of the perspective of the trade, to be honest. But I guess the Vikings want another quarterback, but a bit harsh on Sam Darnold, really. If they are, means he is going to get dropped, because I can't really say he's done anything wrong this year. But yeah, it'll be interesting what happens with that one. Next up, probably this could just be a sort of one-tick question every single time. The Lions versus Titans. I don't know if we need much analysis on this one, but Caden?
Yeah, the Lions. There's nothing else to say on this one.
Kian?
They're the best team in the NFL, the Lions.
Yeah, it's the Lions. The Titans have been awful. They've now lost their best receiver. It's going to be the Lions. And if it's not, it will be probably one of the biggest upsets we've ever seen. Next up, we have the Houston Texans versus the Indianapolis Colts. So the Texans coming off a big loss to Green Bay, and the Colts just being the Colts. So we'll start with you, Kane. What do you think?
Yep, I'm going to take the Texans. bit of a, well, they were the favourite going into their last game, and they are just a very good side. And I think that they'll get a decent win here and continue their playoff charge.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I don't see any world in which the Colts win this game. And the Texans looking to bounce back, much like the Vikings are in their game. And yeah, the Colts just not very good. So yeah, Texans for me. And I think it'll be a pretty one-sided game as well.
Yeah, another sweep. So you're 3 for 3 on the start of these predictions, but I'm going with the Texans. I just don't see a lot of the Colts win this game. They've not been great, and the Texans have. Again, they did lose last week. Poor game for all of their players, but at the end of the day, it's the Colts. It's not the Green Bay Packers. This should be a lot easier for them, and I think CJ Stroud will get back to his normality. But next up, we haven't got Max started this week, but I've got a feeling I could predict quite easily what he'd say about it. The Cleveland Browns against the Baltimore Ravens, and probably a similar story to the Lions-Titans game. This is probably just a one-word answer, but we'll go to you, Kia. What do you think?
It's going to be the Ravens. They looked so good on Monday. It would have been a much bigger win had they not taken their foot off the gas towards the end. And these Browns are really bad. And Jameis Winston is also not very good. Please don't laugh at that. No one take that out of context. For fuck's sake.
Yeah, we'll move on quickly from that one. Yeah, Jameis Winston is not exactly much better than Deshaun, really, is it? No,
Morally,
granted, yeah, he can't do any worse, realistically. So I suppose he's got that with him, maybe less pressure because he literally cannot be worse than what was already going on. But the Ravens are going to win this game, and it's going to be by a lot. The Browns are terrible, and it's going to be probably quite a bad loss for the Browns at home. Move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Green Bay Packers. So the Jags coming off their big win in London, and the Packers coming off probably their biggest win of the season against the Texans. I'll start this one off. Probably quite a straightforward story again. I'm going with the Packers. The Jags just they look better, definitely against the Patriots, but it is the 1-6 Patriots, so not exactly the greatest achievement in the world. They're always going to have that thing with London. They were never going to not win a game in London. So I think, yeah, it's going to be the Packers by quite a margin, I think. Caden, do you agree?
Yeah, very straightforward. Packers win. I think the Jags will put more of a fight than they have in a lot of the games this season just because they're coming off the back of a win in London. They want to try carry something over, but they're not going to get a win. They might get a decent scoreline, but it will be a Packers win, no doubt.
Kid?
Yeah, I'm going Packers as well. I always would have gone with the Packers, even if the Jags hadn't played in London. But the added extra thing of they've been in London for 2 weeks, they've got to adapt to being back in America, time zones and all that. You know, it's going to take you a couple of days. Got to go back to the facility that they've been training at, but also, you know, it's not the same. So it's just getting used to normality again. And they're going to get used to more normality because they're going to get absolutely battered by the Packers. So yeah, Packers for me, they're going to absolutely destroy them.
Moving on, the New England Patriots against the New York Jets. Two teams who have been bad this season. Some maybe not as bad as the others, but this sort of starts a bit of a run of games where it's not as easy as just one-word answers on our predictions. So this won't be the quickest predictions video you've ever seen in your life because some of these games do require a bit of thought, and I think this is one of them. But Kian, what do you think about this one?
So I've been very, very, very 50-50 on this, and I still am right up until when I'm going to say the team. So I'm just going to put an argument forward for both and then just pick one. So Patriots, okay, they lost, but Drake May is looking really, really good. He's not going to play like that and keep losing. And the Jets, as we've alluded to so many times already this season, something's going wrong there. But when you look at the Jets, all that talent, can you keep losing games? I mean, you can, but against the Patriots, I think they'll get a win. They'll get back on track a little bit. But yeah, you know what? I'm gonna take the Jets, but it's really quite a hard one to predict this.
Caden?
Yeah, I'm taking the Jets as well. I think they've got it in them to get a win, and if they were going to get a win, it is this game. as we've said, we just don't know what's going wrong for the Jets, but it's definitely something. I'm not sure. Do we know if Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to be playing or not?
I think it's just an excuse, these injuries.
Yeah, they haven't ruled him out yet, and they haven't really mentioned anything about him being limited in practice or anything. So I think he should be playing.
Yeah, I think having one of the best quarterbacks to play in the NFL with Devontae Adams, who is a very good receiver, it'll kick on a bit now, I think, and I think the Patriots won't be able to stop them.
Yeah, part of me thinks I thought you were going to go Patriots to try and get your score back up because I wouldn't be surprised, and I have been tempted, but I am going to go with the Jets. I just think, as Kian said, there's too much quality in that team to just be losing games, but there is also the fair point of Drake May is playing too well to keep losing games as well. I feel like one of them, it could be a bad game, like a really bad game, this. And I think it's going to be really bad, or it's going to be unbelievably high scoring because, like, Rodgers to Devontae could be disastrous for the Patriots defense, but Drake May could absolutely rip the Jets defense apart as well. So I think it'll be a close game, but I'm going to go with the Jets to win this one. Caden, you can start us off. We have the Cincinnati Bengals against the Philadelphia Eagles. Probably the hardest one to predict so far. What do you think?
Yeah, it's the hardest one to predict, I believe. Maybe for the full week because it is two quite evenly matched teams. And I'm trying not to be biased, but I think that we will get a win just because of how good our offense has been. I feel like the offense is so good at the moment that the defense not been amazing doesn't really matter. We'll still get the amount of points we need to be getting these wins. And it is going to be a good game, I think. On paper, it should be. But I will back us in this game and we will continue to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I've just got a blank space on my predictions notes in front of me for this game because every single part of me wants to say the Bengals, but the Eagles just keep finding a way. And they looked better against the Giants. Saquon absolutely went off. I think he was only 13 yards off of his history, his biggest total, and before they took him out of the game. So if they play like that against that Bengals defense, then they're going to have a hard time. So I'm actually going to go for the Eagles, thinking about it now, but it's going to be a very close game and it could go either way.
Yeah, you do say about them being better against us, but you do have to remember it's the Giants. And performing against us isn't exactly a difficult task at the minute. I refuse to bet the Eagles ever this season. I'm going with the Bengals. It will be a close game, but I think even in our game, there was points where their pass defense is tragic, and the only reason it looked so good against us was because it was Daniel Jones throwing the ball. Any competent quarterback's having a field day with that pass defense, I think, because. And as you said with the offense, but it was only really like Devonta Smith actually finished the game with -2 yards, I believe, because Drew Phillips had him on absolute lock all game, which is quite impressive. But unfortunately, Deontay Banks couldn't say the same with AJ Brown. But I'm going with the Bengals. I think there's too much in that offense to be losing games, and I think they're going to start a little run now to keep just pushing up towards that playoff berth again. And I think this could be the nail in the coffin for the Eagles if they lose this one. And I don't think Jalen Hurts is very good. Moving on to this one for me was probably the toughest one, bar that game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Atlanta Falcons. So the Bucs without Mike Evans and Godwin, and the Falcons struggled against the Seahawks last week. But Kian, what do you think?
You've just mentioned it, and that's the whole reason I'm picking the Falcons. And we've mentioned it already. I'm not sure how they're going to cope without their two main receivers. Their main receiver is going to be K-Dot, and that's not a winning formula. So, yeah, Falcons for me, they didn't have a great game last Sunday, but look, you can bounce back, and I think they will bounce back. They're not a bad team. And as we like to say every week, it is Kirktober. It's the final Sunday of Kirktober, so he's going to have to win, isn't he?
Caden?
Yeah, Kirktober is still going on. And, yeah, the Bucs are really going to struggle without their receivers. I think it potentially could be a blowout. That might be a bit rogue, but it could happen. It could be when the Bucs had to fall apart. I will take the Falcons on this one because we're looking to get some more wins, and this is a perfect place to win and get back in form.
Yeah. See, my issue with it was the Falcons were bad against a bad Seahawks team, and the Bucks weren't necessarily awful against a good Ravens team without Evans and without Godwin at the end, obviously, but they had him for most of the game. But without Evans, they still look okay. I am going to back the Falcons because I think, as you said,
It's cooked over.
I'm not saying it, but yeah, it's sort of written for it to win this one, I think, but it's going to be close, definitely. The Bucks are going to struggle, but I'm going to go with the Falcons to win that one. And I did say before we're in a little tough stretch of predictions, and it's going to continue because we have the Miami Dolphins against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I'm going to start this one off because if you asked me this a week ago, I would probably go with the Cards without any hesitation. But Tua is back in the team, so they finally have their man back at quarterback. And with him back, Tyreek's going to go back, hopefully back to the way he was supposed to be. Jalen Waddle's going to go back to the way he's supposed to be. And I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I think it's been so long without a win. I think with Tua back in the frame, them two are going to get back to the way they were. And that's all they need to be winning games like this, is them two to be on it. I think Marv has been poor in the last few games, not living up to the hype he had off the first couple of games for the Cardinals. And yeah, I'm going to back the Dolphins. Caden, what do you think?
Yeah, well, when I found out that they were going to have Tua back, the first thing I thought was, well, we're going to get a win straight away, because his mentality is just like, there's not many quarterbacks in the NFL that have got that mindset that he's got. He just wants to win games, and he will. Like, he's not wearing a Guardian cap, which I think is a bit of a wild shot from him, considering the issues he's been having. But if he's taking it that seriously and he wants to get the win, he will. And I think Dolphins won't really kick on that much this season, I don't think, because it's already too far gone for me. But I think with Tua back, they will get a win on the board, and that's my prediction.
Kian?
Yeah, well, imagine if you told us last week it was going to be a Dolphins sweep, eh? That feels weird. But yeah, I'm going Dolphins as well. They've got far too much talent in their receiving core to be losing games with a competent quarterback, and Tua is a more than competent quarterback. I'm really quite shocked that he's come back, but Pat McAfee said it, he's a football guy, and when you're playing football, being paid millions of pounds to play football, you're not going to give it up. Guardian cap, strange that he's not wearing it, but personal decision. Look, they need a win. They badly need a win. They need that statement win to show, look, Tua's back. We're going on a run now. So, yeah, I'm going to go Dolphins. I think that they've got enough. And like we've mentioned, the Cardinals haven't been great, even though they did win on... no, they didn't win. Did they win?
I don't actually know.
I'm pretty sure they beat the Chargers, but I was watching the other game, so I don't know.
Yes, they did beat the Chargers 17-15 in one of the most chaotic games I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go for the Dolphins.
That's another sweep for the predictions. Next up, we have the Chargers, as you just said, against the New Orleans Saints. So obviously Saints with the news that Kamara's finally sorted or done. Chargers coming off a tough loss to the Cardinals, and it was just a horrendous game of football to watch. I'll be honest, from the little bits I saw of it, it was just chaos. And they had a goal line fumble and a touchdown. You know, just stuff like that. It's horrendous. But Kian, what do you think?
I'm going Chargers because I watched that Saints-Broncos game, and as much as people are, big fans of Spencer Rattler, I'm not a big fan of Spencer Rattler. I'm a fan of Rattler Cider. I'm not a big fan of Spencer Rattler. I don't think he's very good at all. And the Chargers, my whole logic for this is a bit of a flawed logic. The Chargers are better than the Broncos. The Broncos beat the Saints. Therefore, that's the win. The Chargers are going to win.
Fair enough. Caden?
I'm going to take the Saints. I've got no real logic behind it. I've just got
Did you watch Thursday night?
What?
Did you watch Spencer Rattler on Thursday night?
Shockingly, I didn't. And
I can tell.
Yeah. I've heard he's not great. But I think with Alvin Kamara contract thing, I think he's going to have a big game, prove that he's worth what they're going to be paying him. And I really don't know why, but I just feel like the Saints are going to get it.
I mean, at least we finally have some opposition in the predictions for like the second time today. But unfortunately, Ken, your run of horror is going to continue. I'm going with the Chargers. I just don't see how the Saints win this game. Chargers said they were bad against the Cardinals, all things considered, but I think they're a better overall team, and I think if they just need a few decent throws from Herbert, they win this game easily. So I'm going to go with the Chargers for this one. Next up, I mean, probably maybe not as easy as we thought beforehand, but I still think this is a pretty straightforward sweep. The Seahawks against the Bills. Kian, you can start us off.
That's exactly as easy as I thought it was beforehand. The Bills are going to whitewash them. The Bills are a great team. They had a few bad results a couple of weeks ago, but they're looking back to a decent standard. Josh Allen is unbelievable. So, yeah, Bills for me, and I think it could be quite comfortable as well.
Ken?
Yeah, I'm also going for a very comfortable Bills win. I just don't see any other result from this game. The Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL, and they'll continue to show it against them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Seahawks did come off that win against the Falcons, which was probably it's a good win for them, all things considered, because that is a decent Falcons team. But I believe DK might be out for this game. He was carted off in that win, so without DK, this makes it fairly easy. I'm going to go with the Bills as well, but I think there is a chance if DK does play. I don't know what the situation is with his injury, that it will be closer than you think. But I still think the Bills will win this game. I just think Josh Allen's too good. And now he's got Amari Cooper. He's finally got that very good wide receiver one that he needed to be competitive. And I think they're going to go on a decent little run now, wins. Kian, you can start us off with your favourite prediction of the week. The Las Vegas Raiders against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right. Where do I start? It's at Allegiant. I like to pitch a few reasons we might win first and then say we're going to lose. The only reason is it's at Allegiant. That's literally it. And we beat them on Christmas Day last year. We stole Christmas away from Patrick Mahomes. He did still win the Super Bowl, so I'm not sure he's too bothered. We've got Desmond Ridder coming in. Everyone cheer for Desmond Ridder. Woohoo! No, if I'm being honest, it's going to be the Chiefs. They're going to absolutely batter us. We usually, actually, it's a weird thing about these sort of games. We usually get off into about a 10-0 lead, and everyone goes, fucking hell, we're going to beat the Chiefs. And then they beat us about 50-10, sorry. So, yeah, they're going to beat us. And now they've got DeAndre Hopkins. They're going to beat us by even more. And they're going to really help our battle for the number one pick. So thank you, Kansas City. Please put 150 points up on us.
Yeah. Part of me wants to put the Raiders just for the fun of it, because if the Chiefs are going to slip up any time, it's going to be a stupid game like this where they lose by like one stupid field goal and it's like the most low-scoring game ever and Mahomes has a stinker. I just can't. I can't go against a 6-0 team, and especially not against the Raiders. If I had to back the Chiefs against the 49ers, I have to back the Chiefs against the Raiders. This should be a blowout win with D-Hop especially, and if he's playing, I don't know what it's going to be like with D-Hop this week, but even without him, they've still got Worthy who's enough to tear this Ravens pass defense to shreds. I'm going with the Chiefs. Pretty straightforward for me. Caden?
Raiders.
I hope you're taking the piss.
Already written down, mate.
Right, so Caden's on a
more.
mission to finish last, it appears, in our predictions race. And there is I would like to remind you there is a forfeit for said loser, which we haven't decided on yet. So you might want to be careful. Are you 100% sure you want to stick with your prediction?
100%. As Fallout Boy said, we're going down swinging, and it's a Hail Mary from me. But you beat them last year.
We did.
Can they go 7-0? No.
Yes.
No, they can't. It's not happening.
Quite easily.
It's going to be a very boring game, and you're going to win it with a field goal with the last play of the game.
I hope you're correct, because I want to lose every game this season, bar that.
And yeah, it's looking good for you, because I've
It's
said
not.
It's happening. Honestly, it's happening.
So next up, we have the Denver Broncos against the Carolina Panthers. And I mean, I'll start it off because the Broncos is it 5-3 if they win this game?
Believe
Which
so.
is insane to say, are the Broncos in some ridiculous world still in playoff contention with that record? Which, I mean, you have to say they are with the record, which is absolutely mental to think because it's the Denver Broncos. And it's Bo Nix as one. It could go 5-3, which is crazy to me. But I'm going to back them again. The Panthers just got torn to pieces by a Marcus Mariota, and Bo Nix is probably on a similar level, if we're being honest. So I think with that defense as well, that Broncos defense actually turned out to be really good. It's a similar story to us, but for some reason they can score points and we can't. But I'm going with the Broncos to beat the Panthers. Caden, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Broncos as well. I feel like that's quite a sensible prediction considering how bad the Panthers are. The Broncos aren't amazing, but as you said, the record's actually really good. So you never know. They could actually make it to the playoffs, which no one would have predicted, I don't think, at the start of the season.
Kian?
Yeah, I'm going to go Broncos as well, which is really depressing me because I picked everyone else in our division bar us now. But yeah, that Panthers team is really bad. They've had their one win of the season against us. That's going to be it now. And if the Broncos do make the playoffs, it means I get 2 hate watches in the playoffs, which is brilliant because I'll have the Chiefs hate watch as well. So
there we are. But this one, I think, is going to be potentially where we don't agree. We have the Washington Commanders against the Chicago Bears. The battle of the rookie quarterbacks, the first and second overall picks in the NFL draft, going head to head. Obviously, they both had good seasons, it has to be said. Caden, who's winning the game?
I'm going to go with the Bears, but only because of the Jane Daniels situation, and we don't know if he's going to be fully fit. I just think the Bears look solid.
Oh, do you want me to do mine now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, because you just interrupted. That was all.
No, I thought it was done.
Right. Yeah, I'm going Bears. I refuse to pick against them for the rest of the season. They're going to go all the way and win the Super Bowl. But yeah, the Jane Daniels situation is sort of swaying my decision. But the Bears looked really good, and they have looked really good in their last 3 games. They've won all 3. Caleb Williams is really picking up his performances as well. He's starting to look like the Caleb Williams we expected out of college. So yeah, I'm going to go Bears. I think they're a decent team, and Rome Odunze can get 300 yards and 7 touchdowns. So yeah, bear down, everyone.
Well, I thought we disagreed, but we're all going to go with the sweeper because I'm also going to go with the Bears. I think the Daniel situation, it depends because he's either going to not play or he's going to play hurt. And either way, it's a disadvantage. One obviously slightly, and one majorly less than the other because if it is Mariota, it's going to be an easy Bears win. But I think the Bears rosters, I think they're very similar level quarterback talent, and the Bears roster is significantly better than the Commanders. Even if you look at the receivers, you've got Keenan Allen, is it, and DJ Moore as their 1 and 2 compared to Terry McLaurin, and I don't even know. So I think on that basis alone, it's enough to pick the Bears. But I'm going to go with the Bears. I think without Daniel at 100%, Caleb on that sort of run they're on, they know they need to win because how good that division is. They're going to need to be basically perfect for the rest of the season if they want to make the playoffs. So I'm going to go with the Bears. Going to our last 2 games, we have a big one here of 2 struggling NFC teams this season. We have the 49ers against the Cowboys. Kian, you can start us off on this one.
I'm going to go Niners. I know obviously it's a big loss in Brandon Ayuk, but we've sort of mentioned McCaffrey. I don't think he'll be back this Sunday. But that Cowboys team is really, really not very good. Something's going drastically wrong. And I think it's the man at the top thinking that he can still be a general manager when he's as old as he is and he's not proven anymore. So, yeah, Niners for me. I think this Cowboys disaster class could continue, much to your enjoyment, James.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm agreeing with you. I hate the Dallas Cowboys. I will never back the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going with the 49ers, which means I have now predicted all 3 teams in our division to lose, and you'll see what probably is definitely going to continue with the final prediction of the week. But Yeah, I think the 49ers, even without Ayuk, still beat this Cowboys team. There's something rotten with that Cowboys team. Similar situation to the Jets, I think. There's just something wrong, and no one can really work out precisely what it is. But I just think the Cowboys aren't good enough at the minute, and the 49ers need this win, quite simply, to be still in that sort of. They just need to keep winning these games. So it's a tough game, but I'm going to go with the 49ers. Caden?
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Niners. So we've got another sweep to nearly round off the predictions, which I'm sure we'll get another sweep for the next game. But yeah, the Niners are still a good team without Ayuk. Obviously, it's going to be a big loss for them, but they are still a very good side. Brock Purdy, obviously, game manager, as we like to call him, and I think he'll manage this game very well.
Yeah. Finally, we have the worst team in football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll just start off and get out of the way. This is going to be embarrassing. We shut out by the Eagles. This Steelers team is 100% going to shut us out. I fear, although TJ Watt could injure Daniel Jones, which could end up being a benefit for us. Whether he even plays or not, I don't know. Although Drew Lock, when he came in the fourth quarter against the Eagles, didn't exactly look much better. And my worry is if we bring DeVito in, unironically, we'll win too many games if DeVito is starting quarterback, as we did last year, and it's going to end up costing us a good draft pick. So if we want to win games, we bring in DeVito. But I don't want to win any more games at this point. I'm quite happy to sit here and lose the rest of the season, just lose out, because we need the draft pick badly. We really do. And whether it's a quarterback, whether it's a running back, whether it's a defensive player, I don't know. But whatever it is, we need it badly, because just anything to get rid of Daniel Jones at this point would be really ideal for me. But going with the Steelers, pretty straightforward. Kian?
Yeah, Steelers. That Giants team is really bad. I'll agree with you on that. And the Steelers, even with Russ, look decent, to be fair. Even though some Pittsburgh fans were booing him, which I thought was a little bit harsh. It's not his decision to play. Mike Tomlin put him in. But yeah, they still look good, and I think they'll probably beat you, and it will probably be quite comfortable as well.
Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want the Steelers to win, but they probably will, if we're being honest. I think it's just a simple case of they are the better side, so they will win. There's no slip-ups or anything. When you've got TJ Watt going against Daniel Jones, he's going to be seeing visions of him while he's asleep the night after. He's going to ruin the game for him, and it's going to be a fairly straightforward Steelers win.
Yeah, as I said, he could do us a favour by injuring him, but I definitely wouldn't celebrate that, by the way, if he did get injured. So that's it for our predictions. So Max obviously isn't here, but for the sake of him not missing a second week in the season, and none of us wanted to miss 2 weeks, we're going to put his predictions in here now. So here is what Max thinks about all the games this week. So finally, rounding it off, I've got...
Well, that was wrong, wasn't
it? Yeah, Max, your predictions were shit, mate.
Finally, to round it off, I've got one question for all of you. Who do you think, as of right now, is going to win Defensive Player of the Year? I'm going to start this one off. Dexter Lawrence has to win Defensive Player of the Year if he continues his form. I don't care what anyone else is doing. He is a nose tackle with 9 sacks, and it is insanity to reach that sort of number. He's on course for one of the best seasons for a player in this position ever. And add to the fact that we are this bad and he is still that good, that he deserves it. And it would be probably insane, because we're probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year whilst having a 2-15 record, which would be rather impressive. But for me, it's got to be Dexter Lawrence. Again, probably biased, but I mean, there's a few shouts in there. There's been some really good defensive players this year, in all honesty. You've got Van Ginkel for the Vikings has been great, but I'm going with Dexter Lawrence. Kian?
Unluckily for Dexter Lawrence, the NFL hates shit teams. So even with them stats, I fear that he could be overlooked. I think he should be the front runner, and I think he is the front runner. But it's a sort of thing that the NFL do, where they'll overlook it and give it to someone like TJ Watt, who's also having a good season. He single-handedly won them the game against us. Two forced fumbles, one of which being returned for a touchdown. So, although big shout out to Max Crosby, He's also doing numbers in a really shit team. So one year, Max, 1 year. 1 year you'll win it.
Caden?
Yeah, I would say Dexter Lawrence, but as Cian said, they're not going to give it too much thought because you are that bad. And I think Aidan Hutchinson got really unlucky because if it wasn't for the injury, he probably would have won it. And sad end to the season for him. But I think it'll be TJ Watt if the Steelers can keep getting these wins because he's such a vital part to these wins they're getting. And if they end up in the playoffs because of it, then I don't see any reason he shouldn't win it.
Yeah, I mean, they'll definitely get a win this week, put it that way. And why we've ended up on primetime again, I don't know, because I don't know what neutral wants to watch the New York Giants at any point this season. But yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones on primetime is only going to win one way, and that will be TJ Watt getting about 5 sacks added to his total and probably will confirm him as Defensive Player of the Year after this week. But that is it for this week. So next week, we'll be back with our results from our predictions, which could be really good or potentially really bad for all of us based on how similar we've gone. We'll also cover any news that comes out in the next week or so. But thank you to Cian and Caden for joining me. Max should be back next week with us, but you never know with him. But we will see you all next week. Thank you very much.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
Bye, everyone.